on time with the tariffs, and it seems like that's moving along very rapidly. We've been mistreated very badly by many countries, not just Canada and Mexico. We've been taken advantage of.
You're watching Markets Daily, hosted by me, Jen Sanasi. On this show, we take a look at the biggest news headlines and explore the impact that they have on crypto markets. We just heard a clip from U.S. President Donald Trump, who said on Monday at a White House press conference that tariffs against Canada and Mexico will go forward after a month-long delay expires next week. Now, if things are just moving way too fast for you and you need to catch up, here's what you need to know. Trump signed executive orders on February 1st, imposing 25% tariffs on products from Mexico and Canada and 10% duties on Canadian energy. The administration said the tariffs were to address flows of fentanyl and illegal immigration. In retaliation, both Canada and Mexico announced their own tariffs on American imports, but just days after the announcement, the tariffs were put on pause after Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledged to boost border policing efforts. Now, as you know, Canada and Mexico are two of America's closest allies and trading partners. And according to the Brookings Institution, the tariffs would be a blow to all three economies. They would impede the U.S.'s ability to develop more secure supply chains and compete with China, and would have substantial economic, diplomatic, and strategic consequences.
The economic consequences of a protracted trade conflict would be severe, but it would be very different, a very different shock than the COVID-19 shock. In the pandemic, we had a steep recession followed by a rapid recovery as the economy reopened. This time, if tariffs are long-lasting and broad-based, there won't be a bounce back.
That was Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem during a speech to members of the Mississauga Board of Trade on Friday. He said that the Canadian economy would suffer permanent damage if the tariffs are implemented, while Mexico's President Sheinbaum said on Monday that she was optimistic about reaching an agreement with Trump and even hinted at possible levies on China goods to secure a deal. So what does this mean for all three economies, and how might this affect crypto markets? Joining me now is CoinDesk senior editorial analyst James Van Straten to chat more.
Hey, Jen, how are you doing?
I am doing a lot better than the markets are doing. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it was. I did an article about Bitcoin breaking its channel, which we've been in since end of November, that 90,000 to 110,000 range. And I was expecting it to break, but I was actually expecting it to break to the upside as a perma bull, but we got the downside break of the channel. So, we've now got to recalibrate and see where Bitcoin will level off, and then we have to adjust and go from there.
I think a lot of people who watch this show are permabulls. I am also a permabull. And if you look at the news headlines, there's a lot of attribution to how the markets are reacting to these tariffs. I want to read a quote from Trump's conference on Monday. He said that the tariffs would make the U.S. extremely liquid and rich again. When you hear this, when you see this quote, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think there's a few arguments if you look at tariffs, if they could be inflationary or not inflationary. But I think at the moment, the market's telling us it's not inflationary. We had a massive services print in the US last week where it showed contraction, and that's being reflected in the markets. You've got bond yields down. I think the US 10-year last time I checked was at 4.3%. So growth really isn't a thing at the moment. And I think that can start to be rolled back. That's something that is a concern for the market. And if you've got a very robust and solid inflation print above 3%, and maybe unemployment spiking, or I don't know if it can stay low, then you're looking at a period of stagflation, which is the biggest concern for central banks.
So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to inflation, GDP, jobs, when we're looking at the US, Canada, Mexico. Help me make sense of this. What does this tell us about where the economy is heading in each of the three countries?
I think we're so globalized now. Everything's so interconnected. It's interesting that you've got kind of an inflationary Western environment with all the Western economies. And then you've got the opposite with China, which is going through massive amounts of deflation. And it was interesting being in Hong Kong in consensus, just speaking to people from Hong Kong and seeing how China's deflation actually is leaking into Hong Kong, and how property prices have actually started to go down. But you've obviously got the inverse going on in Western economies, where house prices have done nothing but go up. So you've got a real tale of two economies. You've got so much geopolitical uncertainty as well. That causes a massive concern. So I think you've got Trump trying to put a peace deal together with Ukraine. Europe and especially the UK are very adamant on not these terms. So again, that uncertainty kind of feeds into the market as well, the longer these geopolitical events continue.
You spend a lot of time looking at the markets. I got to ask you what you think of this plan. Do you think we're actually going to see tariffs on Canada and Mexico? And what does that mean? Like, is this a good plan? What could Trump possibly be thinking? What can we expect in the short term and midterm?
I think tariffs are ultimately a tax on the workers. So I don't think they're great. But again, it's so hard to tell. It's so short term. Policies and negotiations are still going on. So I think, again, that feeds into the uncertainty. But I think you're in such a corner when you've got $2 trillion deficits. You want to try and cut spending with the Doge program. So I don't know how many tools the US administration have, and they're going with the tariffs. So it's probably a concern on growth with these tariffs.
Okay, now if we narrow the conversation, we talk about crypto markets. How can we expect markets to react? Do you expect to see them to continue to go down? If these tariffs are put in place, what happens?
I don't think tariffs are the be all and end all. I think it's more liquidity that determines crypto. But I think we are seeing a massive decoupling between Bitcoin and crypto prices. I think Solana is about 50% off its highs, and that's obviously stemmed from the meme coin action that we've seen in recent weeks. And I think that kind of action kind of gives bearish sentiment into the industry, especially from outsiders that can't really maybe deviate or differentiate between Bitcoin and crypto. So I think Bitcoin's been taken down. It was trading in a 3-month range, and I said that it kind of needed to break this range at some point. Being a permable, I thought, yes, that will be to the upside. It was to the downside. So we just got to see how the market oscillates now. Bitcoin just broke below a key metric, the short-term holder realized price at 91,000, and the 200-day moving average sits at about 81, 82,000. And there's not a lot of supply that sits between $70,000 and $90,000, because obviously in November when Bitcoin went up during the US election, we just didn't stop. We just went up. So there was no supply sitting in this range now. So that's the concern for the downside.
And what does this mean for investors? What should folks be watching?
I think the dollar index still provides key clarity at 106. It's incredibly strong. I think if the dollar is mirroring the first presidential term, and that's that gave us the bull market in 2017. So the dollar is down from 110 to 106. It's a lot, but we really need it to start heading back down to 100. That would give some bullish sentiment for crypto. But again, I think it's all liquidity driven, and that's kind of evaporated at the moment.
And I think I know what your answer is going to be here, but Jeff Pasquino wrote something on X. I want to get your thoughts on it. He said these tariffs have little to nothing to do with borderless crypto prices. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, but I think the issue is that crypto kind of trades as a macro asset. So if there's uncertainty in TradFi, there's going to be uncertainty in crypto. I think that's just the nature of the beast now. So we have to take the rough with the smooth. And I think there are way more issues, not just tariffs. It's the geopolitical uncertainty, inflation, lack of growth. So there's so many factors now stemming in this market.
All right, that's a wrap for Markets Daily today. The looming tariffs on Canada and Mexico could have far-reaching economic consequences, impacting trade relationships, inflation, and even crypto markets. While some argue that these policies have little to do with Bitcoin's price movements, uncertainty in global markets often fuel volatility across all asset classes. We'll be keeping a close eye on how this unfolds and what it means for investors. Now, be sure to subscribe and follow for more updates on the biggest stories shaping the crypto markets. Thank you for watching. I'm Jen Sanasi, and we'll see you next time.